All right, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of the Wives Club. We are the Wives Club created by the late, great Kevin Samuels. And in 2021, I actually booked a session with Kevin Samuels because I wanted to create a community of like minded and marriage minded women. And I am so grateful. Not only did he give us his permission, he actually came up with the name. And so every week in the Patreon, these ladies and I would meet to review his content, talk about our action items, and our lessons learned. So it started with just me. I am a former wife in the Atlanta area, was married for 10 years, now amicably divorced and in a long-term relationship for 12 years. So since then, AV joined us in the Wives Club. AV, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is AV. I am a future wife, and I spent some time also with the late and great Kevin Samuels. He coached me about 3 to 4 times, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Super life changing for me. And I'm here really to share that messaging with you guys, and not even just the message, just some of the teachings, because if I can give back in any way, I'd like to give back in a way where other women that were in my same scenario or a similar scenario can also pick up some lessons along the way. So I'm really excited to be back for another episode.
All right, thank you so much, AV. And then after AV joined us, Lisa joined us. Lisa, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa. I am a current wife of 17 years. I'm married to a Henry, and me and my husband have a 5-year-old daughter. And I just kind of am here to support the blue collar guys that don't get all the love that they should, because they are hardworking and they need us as well, and we need them. And I'm also a big fan of Kevin's. I was really big in his Patreon group and his different meetings he had before his passing. So I'm just happy to keep doing the good work and share the message.
Absolutely. And then after Lisa joined us, Hermisha joined us in the Wives Club. Hermisha, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I am Hermisha. I represent as a former wife. Happy to be here. We are excited about this topic, and we are going to get into it. So happy to be here.
All right, everyone. So I am going to kick us off, ladies. You all can sit back and relax, and we will take our laps around the proverbial mountain. So, one of the things that you all will notice when you watch us here in the Wives Club is you will see the title Former Wife, Current Wife, Future Wife. And that is because I firmly believe whether you are currently married, whether you want to be married, or whether you used to be married, we should carry ourselves as wives because wives do move differently. And I always used to get confused when ladies would call into Kevin's show and then he would ask them, but are you a wife? And I never understood it, but now I understand we actually act as wives first and then we are selected. So we had a very lively discussion on our last episode. So I wanted to continue a little bit about that and talk about something that Kevin often challenged us ladies in the community about: what are we willing to do to compete for our men? We are not entitled to a man. We are not entitled to a high value man, a Henry, a hit squad. We have to compete. So I always like to give you all references to Kevin's content. If you look in the description, there is a video there about what are you willing to do for a high value man. I would argue that the same applies to any man of substance. So we have three questions on the agenda that we will take a lap around. And then we, as always, will take you all's questions. So we'll keep it to about an hour tonight. So the first question that you all will see in the agenda, let me just pull it up here so I make sure. When did we realize that we have to compete for the man that we want? And the reason I ask this question is because a lot of times when Kevin used to ask it, women were taken aback by, what do you mean I have to compete? So I got a little bit of story time for you all. I love to bring you all, what we do in the Wise Club here is we bring you all lessons from our actual lived experience because I really believe the older women should teach the young. That's what Kevin charged us to do. Okay. So like I've said in my introduction, was married for 10 years, married my college boyfriend. I was one of those women that had that modern mindset that thought I could do anything that a man could do until I hit the wall. 2 kids from the marriage, so I don't regret it, but since I've been in a relationship with a 1% man, I have had to do a lot of work and still doing the work to make sure that I stay up as the best version of myself and be competitive. So I remember fondly, my guy is on the VP track, and so he's corporate. And before the pandemic, he used to travel a lot for conferences. And he's the guy in the office that has the company credit card. So, if they're having a team event or something like that, everybody's wondering, oh, is Mr. So and so going to be there? That means that I don't have to pay for my drinks. Okay, simmer down, kids. That's fine. And, he would travel and he would come back and I would ask, oh, how was the conference? And, how was this and that? And he would tell me these stories about the office secretary or young interns or whatnot who would get a little bit friendly, right? After they've been drinking up a little bit at happy hour. Oh, Mr. So and so, I'm a little tipsy. Can you make sure I make it back to my room? Or I might oversleep in the morning. Can you knock on my door and make sure that I get up in time? So I would listen to these stories and I would think, wow, okay. Um, what can I do about this? And what it taught me, you all, is that I had a decision to make. I could worry about every little thing that could possibly happen hundreds of miles away, or I could make sure that I was the best version of myself when he was around me, so that no matter what happened out there in the world, he continued to choose me. So that was my one of my first memories and personal experiences about making the decision to be competitive. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but that was my wake up moment about, oh, this is not just going to fall in my lap. I'm going to have to work at it. All right, AV, I'm coming to you. What was your first memory about realizing that you gotta compete for your man?
Yeah, no, I think this is a I say yeah, no all the time. It's a northern thing. I apologize, guys. But as I'm thinking about this, I really love what Maggie was saying. You know, for me, what comes to mind is two things: either before a relationship or during a relationship. I'm going to focus on during a relationship. When I realized that I needed to compete, I learned this around the age of like 27, like getting prepared for a relationship. But I would say once I was in it, um, when you really find a good one, the work doesn't stop. And when I say a good one, meaning if you have a really good man, um, other women see those attributes in him too. I think back to Luke Casey, who was here a few weeks ago, and she was mentioning how sometimes that can happen. And this is a woman that's been married twice and had is married now, and she mentions, like, she compliments her husband in certain scenarios with friends, and sometimes people recognize that, and yeah, they will come for your guy, which can be difficult, right? But I think it's so important to have the confidence in who you are and the connection that you have in your relationship. So that's what I would focus on. But for me, being in a relationship and seeing and recognizing, hey, I really have a solid gentleman here, and that made me realize it's not only a competition to get the guy, there's a competition once you're in a relationship. That happens. It's not always the case, but when it does happen, it's really important to stay super grounded. That's something I'm committed on working on this year, and sharing lessons along the way with you guys. But as I was watching this episode, when Kevin was talking to countless women that weren't as realistic, because it seemed like most of the conversations he had, and to Maggie's point, we had it linked in the description, most of the conversations he had in this particular episode, everyone was focusing on getting to the goal line, which was relationship. But a lot of people didn't realize once you're over the goal line, the work is not it's not done. It continues. So just wanted to start us off with that one. That's when I realized it.
All right, absolutely. And Lisa, I am coming to you. So when did you realize, man, I'm gonna have to compete for the man that I want or the man that I have?
I say for me, I realized that I had to compete. the night I met my husband. As I've told y'all before, I met my husband in a club. I went there by myself, not with my friends or sisters, to be noticed, to be seen. I went where the men were, and I wasn't dancing or anything. I was just there to be seen and enjoy the vibe. So I noticed my husband in the club. I noticed a lot of men in there, but I noticed him, and I also noticed he had females around him and stuff. So I'm like, okay. Then later on in the evening, he did approach me. I like to say he's probably a little bit tipsy. I don't know, but I do know that he was out with his father, and his father told him to go talk to that young lady. So, and I've mentioned that before, but just in that scenario, that I knew that he was somebody that women wanted, and he's a good-looking man. So I knew that I had competition at the time. There was stuff I needed to do after the fact that he got my information and we started talking, that I need to keep him. So until I was engaged or claimed his. And even now, as a married woman, I tell my husband, you can't go to certain stores sometimes by yourself because women look at you. I watch them; they look at him like a chicken nugget, and I'm like, no, nah, they're not getting my man. So you gotta keep yourself together. Whatever you've done in the past, or the way you look, keeping your hair a certain way, the way your man likes it. I mean, I know we got trends and stuff, but definitely competition. I realized that at first, and it's also been important throughout my marriage to maintain that. So I'll start off there.
All right, fantastic. Well, Hermisha, I am coming to you. Are you able? Oh, did we lose Hermisha? I think she's frozen. All right, so we will circle back to Hermisha. Oh, there she is. We got you in here twice. All right, Hermisha, please let us know, when did you realize that you have to compete for the man that you have or want?
Okay, I don't know what's happening, so forgive me. Okay, I think I'm just showing once. Okay, when did I realize I had to compete? You know, um, honestly, I was thinking about this question, and I think it's been a little unconscious to me because, like I said, I represent as a former wife, and I think I lost a bit of that actually. And it wasn't until I was able to kind of sort of connect with Kevin in the last few years where he sort of awakened, like, yeah, this is a thing, remember? And it sort of awakened the athlete in me, and I'm like, that's right, I've always competed. I know how to compete. That's how my father raised me, in the discipline of sports, and how he used that training to allow me to apply that in every area of my life. And I think I lost a bit of that as a when I was married at the time. I lost a bit of that level of competition towards myself. And so I say that because I was at my highest. I was at a whopping 204. I was going through so much. And so by the time I got to Kevin, it was almost like he, in a loving way, yoked me up and almost woke me up, really, and said, "You need to lose weight." And when's your youngest? She about 3 years old now. You had her 3 years ago. What's going on? No, I know you've already popped out two children, and I know he was helping me trying to save my marriage at the time, but he was really looking at me. What can I do to be the best version of myself and to never lose that level of competition, right? Even though I was going to him for help for my marriage at the time. And so for me, meeting with him, he woke me up, and it inspired and rose that athlete in me. And I'm like, you're right. And then I lost the weight or whatnot. And granted, the marriage didn't last, but it empowered me and reminded me of who I was at the core. And I'm a competitor, and my competition is myself. And so I think I would say that, and I think that's the message we're trying to speak to the women. The reality is, whether we're conscious or not, we're in competition. We're all running a race, and it doesn't matter who's the fastest. You just want to finish well, and you want to win. And that's the message that we're going to be speaking on. And I would say, as I reflect on that, Kevin inspired in me to get back to make that more conscious and keep running, essentially. So I would say on that point.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. So much good stuff here. And I see you all's comments in the chat. Keep them coming. We're going to move on to our point number two. And so, our question number two that's in the agenda for you all. What are some of the ways that we wives stay competitive for our men? So, we've talked a lot about, yes, we have to compete. And I want to pause there and just make sure we reiterate that because, again, Kevin used to charge women to be competitive. Now, there are ways to be competitive and stay feminine. And I want to make sure we talk about that because sometimes when we think competitive, we think about it in the corporate sense or we think about it in a masculine way. And I understand that. But there are a lot of ways that we can win if we stay competitive. So I always like to give you all some tangible examples and some lessons from my life, what I've done right and what I've done wrong. And like I said, I always pick my guy's brain before I come to these sessions and I ask him, what do we need to do or how do you want a woman to stay competitive? So a couple things stood out to me. First of all, I know we hear the term it's a marathon, not a sprint, but Hermisha talked about that. We think about it as women, we want the ring and we want the wedding. It's like, I've won, I've won. Men don't think about it that way. They think about a lifetime. So what my guy said is, first I want a relationship. Then I want a good relationship. Then I want a great relationship. And then I start thinking about making a woman my wife, right? So if we're ready to jump past all of that, we can miss the steps along the way. The other thing that Kevin often said, and my guy reiterated, is we are not only competing with the women that we see, we are competing with the women that are around him. So, if you have a man that leaves the house, to Lisa's point, to my guy's point, they're going to be around women, whether it's in the store, in the office, wherever it is. So, my guy flat out told me, you need to be better than any woman that I'm around. I'm like, whoa, okay. So, what does that mean? Again, that means you customize yourself to your man. So, the fit, feminine, and friendly, Hermisha talked about that, and you all know that I struggle with fitness. It is a work in progress for me. But I make sure that I give my guy the best. Doesn't matter if it's at the end of the long day, I prioritize his needs first. I listen to him. I make sure that since he's in a leadership position at work, I don't let anybody in the office out respect him, out submit to him, or outperform what I do in a support role. Now, of course, relationships are different, personal versus business. I learn the things that are important to him, the way that I present myself, um, everything from grooming all the way down to customizing so that he didn't even have to ask me. I anticipate his needs and I do it. And I do it consistently with joy. It really is a joy, especially because the rewards outweigh the effort, but it is effort. So thinking that we're just going to arrive and get everything just because we are, that is wrong because we expect our men to compete outside in the world. So we have to stay competitive. So that's what I wanted to start with and just give you all a few tangible things that I do. We'll take another lap around. AV, I'm going to come to you. What are some of the ways that you stay competitive?
Thank you, Maggie, and all really, really good points. I agree with the points that you made, and Hermisha and Lisa when it comes to our men being out there and that the competition never stops. I also recognize that competition can be very foreign to many, right? And as a future wife, one of the things that I focus on in particular is self work. Oh my goodness, guys, I can't tell you how many times I focus on self work. Like it's a thing. I won't let it go. It's just 1% shift every single day. What can I do to bring my best self to this relationship? Whether you're formerly married, currently married, or formerly married, what can I do to make this 1% better every day? And this notebook, I swear, you guys are so special to me because every single time I look at it from these Kevin conversations, there are memories that come up from those conversations. And, I was really thinking about confidence today. Core confidence is something you can always work on. And, I'm looking at this because, Kevin he's so good at perception and discussing things with people and reading people and really trying to figure out what was wrong. Like there was one session I had with him. 40 minutes. He's looking at me from all different points of the screen. He's like, there's something there. I need to find it. And he wouldn't let up. He was so determined to find what it was. And when we got to the crux of it, it really was a confidence issue. And where did that confidence issue come from? It came from a very, very old relationship 10 years ago. And he's like, you're taking that with you. Why? For me, that was one of the most pivotal conversations I had with him because I did not need that baggage. And I'm looking at the note right now. And he said, that's a ghost from the past. And that person destroyed your confidence. I'm looking at it and I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that he used those words. But he's like, that person destroyed your confidence. You can build it back up. It's going to take work. But this is what I mean about the finish line isn't getting the guy. There really isn't a finish line. A relationship is a lifelong conversation. And if we as wives move differently, the advantages, if we make ourselves 1% better every single day in small things. For me, it was confidence. It could be something different for you. Every single day, if we come with that enthusiasm to be better for him, to be better for our lives and livelihood, I think we can really see a big difference and bring families together, because that's the point of all of this. So I got deep, guys, but I definitely wanted to bring it up because I'm looking at these conversations. I was just like, man, that man was brilliant. But anywho, back to you, Maggie.
All right, so Lisa, I am coming to you, but you all, speaking of family, I have to shout out one very, very special person in the chat. I just got chills, you all, and I know. Oh, Jeff Liscombe mm, is the late great Kevin Samuel's best friend. Y'all, I got goosebumps. I'm sorry. I just remember my session with him, and you all know that Kevin had a YouTube persona. But if you ever had the honor, the absolute honor of talking to him one on one, whether it was in a session or in the Patreon, you knew his heart. Jeff is here, and I just wanted to read his comment. It says, being the most feminine is a competition. Being the best woman wins the man's heart. So if everybody would do me a favor and just put Jeff in the chat. We're going to keep coming around the lap, but I just wanted to shout that out. Keep the comments coming. We're going to star them, and then we will take your questions and comments after we get done here. So Lisa, I'm coming to you. What are some ways that you stay competitive for your man?
Um, I mainly do the things that he's always liked from the beginning. So whatever I was doing when he met me and when we were courting or whatever, that's what I would do to keep him, because I feel like especially for my husband, men are creatures of habit. So, they're gonna like what they like. And the reason he's chose me because I was doing stuff that he liked. So I'm not gonna change that up. And like I mentioned before, whether that be hair or fashion or style or whatever it can be, I try to do what keeps him happy. So, and another thing I was going to mention is, as a wife or a girlfriend, if you're dating, you want to keep yourself up for your husband or your boyfriend. And so you're not looking your worst, because if you're looking your worst, you're giving your competition ammo, to look other ways. So I would just say, as a married person, I think it's best to keep yourself up so you don't have to, worry about stuff like that. And you won't be in the situation where, well, that'll just add to the competition. You're giving him ammo to find competition, I guess is the best way to put it. But my parents have been married for 45 years. And my dad, he says little silly stuff to us like, I got to go out and protect my woman and, do all this stuff because my mom, like I said, she's my role model, and she's always dressed to the nines. She goes out looking her best, and she just so very feminine. So I can see where my dad is like, he's got to fight for his woman's love because he's got to, but it's just like their little joke between us. And we're like, but, but it's for real. She's keeping my dad happy. She's keeping him interested. She's, as long as they've been married, they still do that. So I find that important. So I see that from my parents. I got to do that for me, my husband. Like I was saying, I tell my husband, you too good looking like a chicken nugget. You can't be going around these, going out looking like that. So it's both, it works both ways. So I would say that's one way I keep Um, I try to keep what is it? What's the question? Keep competition away or
How
something
you
like that.
stay competitive. You
How
answered
I
it.
stay competitive. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Okay. So there you go. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Hermisha, I am coming to you. Please share with us what are some of the ways that you stay competitive for your man?
Well, I am in no man's land. However, that doesn't mean we drop the ball, ladies. We are always in competition. So, as a former wife, I would say ways that I stay competitive for my future man. I would say is all is well being my best self. When we talk about competing, we're talking about competing against ourselves. At least that's the perspective I come from. Now, granted, our competition is the women around the men that we want. But if we are competing against ourselves, we're always our best. So you don't have to worry about who's winking at him, who's smiling in his face, because you're giving your best. All you got to do is stand there and look beautiful and feminine and keep that body together. And, he's going to see you. He's going to be like, I'm waiting to get home to that. Right. And so I think as we function at our highest potential and our best, for me, again, Kevin got on me about my fitness, and I needed it so bad because it was like my dad reminding me of this is what I taught you. Remember the sports. And even if I think I saw in the comment, if you didn't play sports, this is still applicable. The discipline piece, right? The stewardship that can apply in every area from money to fitness to your mind to your emotions, the self control, right? And like AV said, getting 1% better every day for me is wiring type my fitness. Especially as we get older as women, Kevin mentioned, he said a lot of us lose on that alone. 8 out of 10 of us are disqualified because we're overweight. So a lot of us are not even really getting the attention of the caliber man that we want, right? So the fitness piece, and this is the marathon, right? So you're maintaining that level of health and wellness, right? You're not to say that you have to be a bikini bodybuilding person or anything like that, but how are you? Do you have the stamina? Are you healthy? Right? All of that matters. Our health is literally our wealth. So I would say on that point, the other piece Kevin mentioned to me was he said, "Hey, you stop dressing like your children." He told me to stop dressing like my girls. He said, I need you always on your toes. I need you in heels, whether that's an actual heel or just propped up, right? For me, sometimes I'll wear a hat and leggings, and I got 2 girls and I'm always on the go. But what he reminded me of is every time you step outside the door, you are representing yourself. And if you have a man, you're representing your man. And you're sending people nonverbals on how much you respect yourself and how you should be treated. So, all the women, if I can park here, can we burn the bonnets, please? Can we stop going outside with bonnets and stay indoors with that? Right? Because, we are sending a message of how we would like to be treated and how we're being perceived, right? So being mindful of your image. For me, I remember him telling me when I did the image consult with him, he asked me first, he said, who do you most resonate with in terms of image, in terms of how they present themselves? And I thought long and hard about that. And I said, this might be controversial, but Michelle Obama. And he said, I'll never forget, he said, the First Lady of the United States of America. And I said, yes, sir. And he leaned back and he said, all right. And I was waiting for him to get on me about that. But he said, okay. But for you, Hermisha, less is more. I can see you in monochrome Chanel. Now, I didn't know how much Chanel cost when I looked up Chanel. I said, wait a minute now, you should have got a budget. I'm not in Chanel. But the point being, less is more for me, but then also, again, being mindful how you present yourself so you know your style and you can always sort of show up in that way in your feminine essence and mindful of your image and what you display out there. So I would say, to sum up, the fitness and being mindful of your attire. Less is more. Sometimes we can do too much with the colors. Find the color that works for you. For me, it's blues and grays and whites, um, things of that nature, and go with it. All right. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
I absolutely love it, you all. Thank you so much for all of the engagement. Yes, I hear you all and I see you all about the bonnets. That was a whole section of Kevin content. So we have one last question that we'll do, but I do want to respond to a comment that we had that Hermisha talked about. I started here. For those of us that never did competitive sports, it can feel foreign to compete. It's a new concept for me, and I'm really appreciating this. So thank you, DS. So just ladies, so you all are prepared when we come back around. The last question, and I will start with this. What are some of the ways that a woman should not compete for or with a man? So I'm going to talk about that, and then we'll take our final lap before your questions. One of the things my guy always says is that all young girls should be in a sport. I love what Hermisha said about being competitive, but not only that, it's that it gets you used to feedback. It gets you used to being told point blank, that's not good enough. You have to work harder. I think that's a huge mindset shift in our community because so many of us, Kevin used to say, we're not entitled to anything. We have to work for it. So I did play soccer in high school, and I understand. But whether it's band, whether it's sport, anything where you have to compete, it does build character. But I wanted to comment on what DS said. You're right. If you didn't participate in that, this can seem very unnatural, especially in our society where it's like, I woke up like this. I'm a perfect 10. We're not. We really do have to earn it. So don't beat yourself up if it feels like, oh, this is strange. We all had to get there. So in answering this question, so we talked about realizing that we have to compete, ways that we do compete, but again, because I like to give you all tangible ways to avoid the mistakes that some of us have made. If you notice, what I put in the agenda was ways that we should not compete for and with our men. And I did see a comment about that. So, as far as competing for our men, in our community, sometimes what I see is women think, like Hermisha just said, less is more. If they adorn themselves with more, you'll see them. You won't miss them, but you'll see them out of the crowd, in a crowd. All of the different elaborate ways that women try to beautify themselves. But AV said this several episodes ago. If you really listen to men, and I ask my guy what they like and do what they like, that is another way of standing out because you look different. It is no mistake that I have the appearance that I have. My guy likes the kind of librarian, nerdy, girly kind of feminine look. So that's what I do. And I can't tell you how many women have had something to say about it. But at the end of the day, I don't want the praise from them. I want the praise from him. So I would avoid listening to what the masses are doing and really customize yourself to your man. And then as far as not competing with a man, this is a huge mistake that some of us make, especially those of us that are corporate, that have advanced degrees, six-figure salaries, all of that. So some tangible things that I do. Shout out to the Godfather. I do not overtalk my man. When he begins speaking, I stop and I wait and I let him get his thought out. And then when there's a break in the conversation, then I interject. As simple as that sounds, that has to be a learned skill for a lot of us who are just used to saying whatever we want whenever we want it. I make sure that not only my appearance, but my hygiene, my energy, all of the things that are important to him, I give him my best, even if it's at the end of the day. So I don't make excuses for it. If it was a rough day with the kids or a rough day at work, I park that and I make sure that I give him my best. I don't compete with him in accolades. I don't compete with him in promotion, in salary. I let him lead. And this is something that I had to learn to do because I made those mistakes. But again, just finding ways to make him happy, you're going to get what you want so much more than if you try to force it yourself. So I'll leave it there with a couple of things that I would advise you all to avoid so you don't compete with your man. All right, AB, I'm going to come to you. What advice would you have of things not to do to compete for or compete with your man?
Yeah, this is a really, really good question, and one that I think could benefit a lot of people when we have these type of discussions, right? I think you really have to look at where competition is directed before we give you answers, and Maggie did that really, really well, right? When you are competing for a man, that's different. That's looking at peers. That's looking at other women. When you're competing against, you see how that feels a little contrary and a little negative, right? You should never really compete against your man ever, right? In the episode in which we have linked in the description, there was a young woman that called in, and Kevin picked up on that right away. He's just like, because she was mentioning how she made more money than the man she was with in the past and things like that. Those were giving off the negative side, which is competition against. Competition against. We don't want to do that here. We are their helpmates. You never want to compete against them. Competing for really gets you into the mindset of peers. And here's the thing, we talked about that finish line. There is the competition beforehand, but remember, it does not stop there, right? You're going to have to continue to keep yourself up. And thinking of Lisa's comment, don't let yourself go, right? And I think the best superpower that we all have is just staying in your feminine and realizing day to day masculine behavior in other women. Hey, this person has done this. That's a little masculine. What did Kevin did that all the time. Hey, you're parking backwards. I do that sometimes because I'm like, oh, this is convenient. But guess what? A little masculine, right? If I am leading with certain things or getting triggered by certain situations, even getting triggered by something so small, little masculine, right? So realizing it in yourself, but also seeing it in society, I think will go a long way because it isn't just about our community. It's just realizing it in the boardroom when we're at work or whatever women do for work. You can be a secretary, you can be a nurse, you can be in any profession, but just realizing when things are masculine and we want to do the opposite of that, right? Because it is our absolute superpower. Even, like today, I've had a few scenarios where, I have a dog, buy a dog, right? And I hear myself talking to the dog. Like, was it an hour or two ago? And I'm feeding her. And I almost like, spoke to her in a masculine way. I was thinking, you know what? It's not very nurturing. It's not very feminine. So, like, those are the small little things you can do day to day to just be in the moment and pick up on it and do the opposite. Because what do we say? Give the guy what he wants, but also understand what they want and do it. So that's what I have for this round.
I love it. All right, Lisa, I'm coming to you. What do you say about ways that we should not compete for or with our men?
Well, I definitely agree with a lot of stuff you said, Maggie. Like, don't compete with your man on a work level or career level or things like that. Also, a big one for me early in my marriage was like letting my husband lead and not being so concerned with getting the last word. If I'm letting him um, lead the conversation, kind of like what you spoke about before, just letting him talk and then wait for the pause. Don't just interject. That was something, especially when I was working, I would do all the time with my husband at work and stuff like that. And I've learned, and it's still something I work on, that let them lead, and I don't have to have the last word. Well, what's the point? He's the leader. What he says goes. So even early in my marriage, I wish I would have did that more. Now I know better, but those are the two main things. And I kind of agree with everything that's been said so far. But and let him be masculine, because letting him lead and letting him have the last word and all that, that's what works best. So that's it for me.
Fantastic. All right. And Hermisha, I'm coming to you. What advice can you give about ways that we should not compete for or with our men?
Yeah, I think we've all sort of hit on the big ones, right? Uh, one thing I had an answer to that, but I'm gonna switch it up. So I'm thinking out loud off the cuff. And I'm thinking about a conversation I had earlier today, and it's almost along the lines of, especially for us as working women and professional women and corporate women, and I'm the PhD women over here, even though I don't lead with my degree, right? Um, is I think being clear, even crystal clear, to not expect how much you make as a single woman to then expect that same level of income as a married woman. Meaning, we can often say, well, I make this much, so my man has to match this, or else I'm not going to even give him the time of day. And it's so, and I think it's worth parsing hairs on this, because it came up in the conversation today, and I thought, oh, I never thought about it this way. What I make is what I make as a single woman to build and put away for my girls, may not be what I will need to make as a married woman under one income. I don't know if that makes sense at all, right? Because sometimes we could say, well, I need a man making this amount of income. And then subconsciously we could be in almost, I don't know if it comes off as if you're in competition with that. That's one way it can manifest on the other spectrum. But sometimes we can overlook men because we are expecting them to make a certain income that maybe we live at as a single woman that you may not necessarily need as a married woman, right? I know for myself as a married woman, um, and I'm trying to be intentional with honoring my ex. I would say, as smart and intelligent as he was, uh, according to the definition of high value that we tend to, the Kevin's definition. Well, let me back up. It was not Kevin's definition. This is how high value has always been around, right? He wasn't that, but we lived under that with two children, right? So it's possible. And so I would say, I hope this is landing, y'all. It's so subtle, but sometimes we can go into things with a level of income that we make as single women and then almost try to subconsciously compete or expect that. And I'm just saying that that's something we want to be mindful of, to not to lead with that, and to know that you can believe it or not, you can make it with less with two people, if that makes sense. Comment if y'all
Yeah.
have questions on that, but I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely, it makes sense, and I think what it comes to, and if you all have questions for us now, you can put your questions in the chat. We will circle back through the comments. I'll bring everybody up. But where that landed for me, Hermisha, is really remembering what Kevin said about we don't value our men. Lisa has been here as the champion for our blue collar Henrys. You all know, well, you may not know, I am a boy mom, and I have two boys in high school. They're teenagers, amicably divorced from their father, and I see it now. Remember how Kevin used to say men have to put their heads down in their 20s and eat, you know what, for 10 years to make themselves. So to Hermisha's point, those of us who thought just because I make six figures, he has to make six figures, completely discount the value of a man. And young ladies, hear me. If there's anything you can learn from Auntie Maggie, when you're in your 20s, 40 seems so far away. You think you're going to be forever young. You think you'll have the stamina and the strength just like you did running around the room. And then you get to the 30s and 40s, and now looking at 50 and 60, it's going to be here just like that. The boys are almost up and out. What am I going to do for my golden years? Remember, Kevin always used to ask, what do you want life to look like when you're 50 and 60? And I'm so grateful that I did prioritize relationships, so that's not a concern. And yes, he's a 1% man, but you know what? And I tell him this all the time. I appreciate your mind. I appreciate your leadership, your decisiveness. Y'all, I can't even decide what I want to eat in a restaurant. He comes in the room, he's like, this is what we're doing. That just allows me to have the pressure on his shoulders and not my hips. We could go on and on and on, but whether you have a Henry, whether you have a hit squad, whether you have a high value, this place is where we support and respect our men. All right, so I'm going to take a look at the comments. I'm just going to actually, I want to scroll back to a couple that I had starred. Well, first of all, condemn. Not the Bennett. The bonnet. Sorry, y'all. I miss Kevin's soundboard. Does anybody miss the soundboard? So Condemn says that bonnets should disintegrate the moment they cross the threshold exiting the home. Yes, absolutely. Rodney says men look to our wives to maintain their status. Like Hermisha said, as soon as we leave the house, we are representing our family, our man. So be your best. Be your best, ladies. That's one way to stay competitive. All right. We've got lions seek lionesses, not hyenas. Oh, that was an episode. Y'all remember that one? I think we did a stream about that. Okay. So if we have any questions here, I'm just going to scroll back. I love this comment from Just Another Mark. So many women just don't understand that men will do everything we can to try and give them the world if they just treat us nice. Oh, it's almost heartbreaking. I know when we talk about competition, it sounds like, oh gosh, it's so much. What did AV say? Ask them what they want and do it. And I would ask, do it consistently. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions, but we'll take another lap around. We'll go for about 10 more minutes, you all. Thank you so much for being here. DS says, I cringe when I recall how I thought to compete with men when I was younger. So embarrassing. All right, so let's take a lap around with this one and share the mistakes that we've made. And the reason that we do that, you all, is that that is the only way that we're going to get better is if, we as the older women do teach the young. And I remember being one of those that thought my accolades, all of the stuff that I had accomplished on paper, meant something. And I learned the hard way. It doesn't mean to men what it means to us. And it's an accomplishment. It is a moment in time. But as women, what we really want, if we're being honest, is a lifetime. So I had to change the way that I think. Because to Hermisha's point, even if you're making that big income now and you're living that life, you are not going to want to do it until you're 65. Believe me. Think about how many women that you know in their 50s and 60s are going just as hard as we did in our 20s and 30s. It's natural that we want to slow down. That is something that I learned the hard way. So now I put relationship first and professional second, where before I had professional first and thought the relationship would just take care of itself. And then I looked up and it wasn't well taken care of, and that's on me. So now I stay competitive by prioritizing my relationship. AV, would you like to share any mistakes that you've made in being
Yeah.
competitive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm going to go back to a point that was made last night or last week. Sorry. I'm getting everything all confused. But last time we were here, we were talking about how sometimes we can hear the messaging in the space and you hear that the wall is coming. And this is just coming from a future wife. And it's like, oh my goodness, jump, jump to the choppers. There's a fire. Get there. It's time to run. We got to run to the finish line. And here's the thing, we cannot confuse this rush to getting to the finish line. And that's one thing I wish I did differently, is not running to the finish line, just always just, you know, trying to get there. It's just like, okay, you get there, but you do it with a purpose. You get there doing it planning, but you also getting there, you get there doing 1% better every single day. It's just going to make you more competitive, right? So I would encourage people, you might hear that the wall is coming. Don't rush to get there. And even if you're over the wall, don't rush to get what it is that you want, because we need to make intentional decisions. We're all here to get married with intention. And if we are married, we're hoping to bring our best selves intentionally every single day to these relationships. So that's what I would mention.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Luke Casey had a point here, and then Lisa, I'm coming to you because this one hits home. She says, they also fail to think that life could hit you with an illness, and having to go through something like this alone is truly hard. Lisa, any mistakes that you want to share, what you did wrong trying to compete either for or with your man?
Mm, I think maybe the only mistake I can really think of early in my relationship is just being really jealous of um of the women early in my relationship, just jealous of whatever was out there. Because like, I wasn't under like what Kevin talks about. I didn't really think about what kind of women those were. So I'm like jealous of hyenas back then, and I didn't need to be. I realize that now. Like, they could be all over my husband, but he sees what they're about. They got kids. They got, they just want to do with money and stuff. And my husband's like, no, that's not what I want. Like when my husband went on that trip, he wants peace. He wants good food. He wants what he wants. And if they haven't been, like, my mother-in-law trained me to be the wife that he wants and needs. So I say worrying about that in my early years as a wife was probably something I would not do, because knowing that I was doing the right thing all along is what has kept me here, and that's why I'm still here. But I do want to say about what the video that we had reference to from Kevin, those young ladies, there was one in particular just talking about the dude, and I think they were on the same level or they did the same career or something. And he was like, well, why aren't y'all married? He told the girl to go back and get her man because they had been separated or away from each other from December. And I was like, he's like, that's your man. So that was another example of him trying to put somebody back together with the person that they had dated in college for like 2 years. And I really want him to ask, why did your father not, you know, because she had a dad, why did your father not encourage you to be with that guy? And what was so bad about it? Because like my dad told me to, that's the guy for you, or that's a good guy right there. Don't just because of one little thing. So, and the other thing I would just say, when you talk about when you are looking at what guys make, like a lot of those young ladies in the video we referenced, they were looking at what they make, and they were probably Henrys or blue collar guys. And but like someone mentioned already, if you look at your incomes and you put them together, and what Kevin used to say is, when you get pregnant or something, how much income do you want to provide towards the family? 30-20% at that point. But I always wanted him to say, what if you couldn't provide anything? Because like in my situation, and like what I think Lucchese was talking about, what if something happens to you? What if something takes you out of your working, or accident, what have you? Then what do you have? So I just want them to keep that in mind, but also doing those calculations on, because once you move in together and you have whether you need to have a vehicle or wherever you live, all that adds up. So I don't know if their mindset is not allowing them to think that further on, because as a wife and a spouse who I have to do all these calculations, and I have to make sure there's money for this, that, and the other, and go over with my husband. I don't think they're looking at it that way. They're looking at what they pay for their self, their rent, their car, their food, and it's not going to be like that once you're together. So I think that's an important conversation, or something they need to look at a little bit more.
Absolutely. All right. So, Hermisha, I am coming to you, but again, you all, we've got the late great Kevin Samuel's best friend in the chat. So I have to shout out his comments. And Jeff is bringing us flowers, a beautiful bouquet. And it says, flowers to you ladies for the positive energy, help for women becoming wives. Absolutely. That is our heart. You all, we have been doing this since 2021 in the Patreon. We just decided to come out and share it with you all. So our heart is to keep Kevin's legacy alive. I did drop the link if anyone wants to ask a question. If not, we will wrap it up after Hermisha shares with us Anything you want to share as far as mistakes you made competing for or with your man?
Yes. I would say, and I'm thinking about the sessions I had with Kevin when he was trying to help me save my marriage. Um, when I reflect on this, when I think about what happened with us, what I thought I was helping financially turned into enabling. So that would be the mistake I made, where as a ambitious woman, as a go getter, um, I took on too much that I needed to. And then I got used to living at a certain lifestyle. And so when I'm thinking about what Kevin instructed me, he said, you got to be willing to downsize. And I was. And like Maggie talks about, we don't want that monkey on our back, right? We got to think long haul. Now, for me, I homeschooled my girls. I am a housewife. Like that, I lean traditional, and all the executive skills that I have, I lean traditional, and I try to use my skills to help my man. So when I thought I was helping in that respect, it sort of went on too long. Where, in Kevin's word, it turned into enabling. And so, I would say to that point, um, not like being willing, you can help in other ways, but being willing to ensure that you are living, if you are able to, that you can live under one income as a married couple, right? And I think to Lisa's point, where, I mean, you just never know what could happen, but if you get into the mindset of we're going to live under one income, which means we got to tighten up shit, even if you have children. It means you can't get those designer shoes. It means you can't do all the things, right? And that's okay, right? So I think I would say on that point, and I think that goes to what I was really trying to get at, as those of us who are single women out there, especially those who are working professional women and high earning women, we can have that level of expectation. And I'm not saying that that's something that we shouldn't have, but at the same time, when you're looking for a husband, I think it's important to focus less on how much money he makes and more of what type of man do you need. For me, I know I need an ambitious type of man because he just moves a little bit differently, and that's going to translate in other things. And so I think as we focus on what is the type of man that you need for the type of woman that you can be for that type of man, and less on the dollar amount, because like Kevin always says, the competence will get compensated. And you just got to learn how to live within the means based off of that man, right? So anyway, I feel like that was a long-winded, but hopefully you guys are hearing what I'm speaking about.
Absolutely. And I do see a question, so we will take that. But I do want to shout out one Cash App, and I do see somebody in the back. So thank you, AL, very much for the $5 Cash App. We appreciate the support. You all see in the ticker, we are the Wives Club created by the late, great Kevin Samuels. We are powered by men. So I'm going to read this question. We'll do a quick lap, and then we have Real Bravado Network in the back. So we will come to you. So this is from Just Another Mark. He says, asking for a friend. All right, we got you. How did you all show interest in and compete for the men you see a future with? Was there something unique that you saw he needed and filled that role? So I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at this one. For me, it was easy. You may or may not know that I kind of like to cook. And when you have, whether it's a Henry, Lisa's talked about this, a Henry, a high value, or 1%, our men work incredibly hard, and sometimes they don't always make the best meal choices. So what I did is I started meal prepping and planning for him. We don't live together. We have children, so we are raising our children separately, and then we will have our golden years together. But I would take Sundays and I would buy all the things that he liked, and I would make all of his food down, and I would package them in containers, and I would deliver them to him. So he would basically have a stack of meal prepped week work week lunches that he could grab from. It was an absolute joy for me. I love to serve in that way. That is easy for me, and that is something that was helpful for him. So not only did it save him money, he kind of liked being that guy in the office that when he would microwave something, all the single men who were eating air sandwiches would kind of look over and be like, "Man, what you got now?" But I would advise you all, be true to who you are. Yes, definitely work for your men, but don't start anything that you're not going to be able to continue, because we are setting up an expectation of this is what life is going to be like with me. And I still do that to this day. So I would advise you of that. And lastly, I don't care what anybody else says, because I had a lot of friends at the time make comments. It don't take all that. He can do that on his own. What's the big deal? They're single and I am not. So, AV, I'm going to come to you. What would you like to say about the question we have here? How did you show interest and compete for the man that you see a future with? Anything
Yeah.
unique you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, another great question. You've been hitting us with these week after week. I see you, Mark. I see you. A couple things. So when I met with Kevin, the second session, actually no, the third session was really centered on assertiveness. And what does that mean? It meant that he taught me how to be very feminine and like assertive in a feminine way, meaning when it was time to get out there and express interest. There's such a science to it, guys. Like I cannot even tell you guys how Kevin put me on to the game, like to the point where I have a digital business card. And we walked through different scenarios on how to even introduce that into a conversation, right? So there's a science on attraction. I'm not going to get into that. The part that I will get into is once you do meet the person, how do you express interest? Maggie often mentions customizing ourselves and being and you tailoring yourself to that man and understanding his needs. That means you have to be very observant. Look at what those gaps are. If it's someone that is very busy, what can you help with? I have a benefit of being an executive assistant in a past life, so I'm used to working with busy people. So sometimes, if the guy has a very demanding job, I tend to pay attention to things he needs, things that might help his day, small stuff. Like even if it's like paying attention to what his favorite, you know, ice cream is, or paying attention to what if I notice that he has like a sweatshirt that he hasn't had time to replace. I think of that type of stuff. And when you do that, you give them these care packages, and you start to show them that they care. That's really where that connection and fondness, or that you care, that connection and fondness grows. So for people that are starting off in relationships, I would just encourage you to pay attention, be very, very observant on what you can do to help, but with the intention of how do I make his day better? What can I do to make him smile today? Like we have to go back to the basics sometimes, guys. And these are just really, really tiny, tangible ways that if you are married, not married, in a relationship, not in a relationship, small ways that we win as wives because we're paying attention to this sort of thing. Shout out to AL, who also sent a $5 cash app. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Lisa. I'm coming to you. In the meantime, we have Carlos. Thank you so much for the $10 Cash App. Real Bravado dropped. He's having some connectivity issues on the road, so I've dropped the link if anybody wants to come up or ask your question after this. You're most welcome to. Lisa, any mistakes? Oh, what was the question? No, I'm sorry. We already did that one. This one was, how did you show interest and compete for the man that you saw a future with? Anything that you saw a need and filled the role?
Yeah, my husband, well, my boyfriend at the time, he had a lot of military friends, guy friends, and they would throw parties, and they have a one of his friends was a DJ, and they throw really big parties. And I had my sisters and my friends, so when I started coming around to the parties, I'd bring more girls, and we were a good looking bunch, I guess, and they liked that. And also then for the parties, I was like, there's no food, y'all just got chips and drinks. So I kind of got with being a hostess, making sure. I was like, well, let's add some cheese, or let's add this to let's get some chicken wings, make it a little I do remember yelling at the guys like, "This is not a meal; these are snacks." But still, I was just trying to be most a hostess like my mom taught me to be, and like make sure we got napkins, the basics, we got forks and stuff. So I just saw that he had a need for some femininity to make these parties a little more success. And next thing I know, I was making flyers and putting things on what was it, MySpace, or that's what we were doing back in 2003. So I was trying to help him out in ways like that because IT was my field and I was kind of computer inclined. So I do stuff like that, and I just saw there was a need, and he really. To this day, his friends and stuff still remind me like, yeah, he used to do all the party stuff and bring the girls and made sure the food was good and it kept coming and stuff like that. So, and make sure, simple stuff like make sure there's plenty of toilet paper in the bathroom. We got paper towels, just simple stuff like that that guys overlook, and that's just their nature. But when he had, the parties just got better and better and better and bigger, and just having someone, because that's stuff I like to do, and my mom taught me well. So I think that was helpful for me.
Absolutely. And Hermisha, I will come to you, but I saw Real Bravado Network is in the back, so put a pin in that. And I do always, 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 y'all, whenever Jeff comments, I'm going to stop and listen. And he says, if you made the honor roll to get your degree, get on the men's honor roll to show you know the subject men and what it takes to make the grades to get that degree, right? With that ring. I love it. Oh, I'm so honored. Jeff is the late, great Kevin Samuel's best friend. So we see you all in the chat, but I have Real Bravado here. I'm going to go ahead and bring you up, and you have the floor. What would you like to ask or share?
Hey, can you ladies hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm like not home. I'm traveling. I'm with my beautiful 8-year-old daughter right now, and I'm actually on her tablet because my mine is all act up and janky. But I wanted to just share with you ladies that want you ladies to keep doing what you're doing. I was just on a conversation with content creator like Ash on the line, and she is struggling with holding her counterparts accountable, thinking differently, wanting to connect with the black, a black male and all this. And she was very just kind of emotionally drained because she feels like she's being attacked because the people that are attacking her are saying that she's attacking black women and she's not. And I just reminded her truth and facts feel like an attack, but they're not. And it's the only path forward to anything productive is that we got to stay on that path and realities. So I want to say to you ladies, as you guys approach monetization and your growth, and I'm just putting it out there that that's what's coming, that I'm glad you guys have each other for that support, because what you are doing is so anti what we are have been accustomed to basically for the last 40 years or so. So I want to keep you guys encouraged to keep doing what you're doing. The men will come out and support you. There are going to be a slothful ladies who are going to not like what you're doing, and you can't get angry with them because they're only doing and reacting what they've been taught, and what they've been taught and what they've been in their echo chamber and what they've been reinforced. So we have to keep that in the back of our mind when we're talking about grace and mercy, understanding that the attack isn't coming from because they're witches. They just don't know any better. And so that's kind of how I approach when I'm having these conversations over where I'm at, is that people just don't know any better. I'm not going to hold you ladies. That's all I wanted to say. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing excellent work over here, and keep it up. Oh,
Thank
AV. Oh, I know you probably don't remember this, but you made a statement about you saw my Northeastern T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I went to grad school at Northeastern. Absolutely.
Oh, look at
Yeah.
that. We have Massachusetts in common. I bet you're in a warmer place now. It's
No,
cold
I'm
up
not.
there.
No, I'm not. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm from Wisconsin, so
Oh, you went to a cold. You went from the cold to the cold?
yeah. I'm from Wisconsin, so cold is what I know.
Got you. Got you. That
Yeah.
is
So
so funny.
I just meant to. I've been meaning to tell you that. Yes, I went to Northeastern.
Awesome. That is so good to know. Now I know I have a Massachusetts brother out there.
Absolutely. All right, ladies, keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much, Real Bravada. All right. So, Hermisha, we're coming back to you. So, would you please let us know, asking for a friend from Mark, How did you show interest in and compete for the men you see a future with? Was there something unique that you saw he needed and filled that role?
I just want to say Maggie is an awesome host. I love her intonation and makes you just sit back and like, here's the question, it's coming. Hermisha's on the stand. Okay, that's enough. I would say, you know, I absolutely, I've talked about this, y'all. I just love to use my words. I'm a words gal. I get to speaking over you and pouring into your spirit and your soul. But in order for me to properly speak over you, I got to study you. I got to really know you, right? Your heart. And I think that's the key that I've been learning and growing in as a late bloomer. I had to learn these things as a former wife. And I just feel confident in this because I know how much words are powerful to me. When people encourage and inspire me, my dad tells me he's proud of me. It just sinks into my spirit, right? But all the more for our men. How many of them hear the things that they're doing well? How many of them hear that we're proud of them, right? That they work day in and day in and day night, um, and they provide and they have the burden of being our protector and the provision and all the things. And we see Kevin model all of that, right? Um, and so I like to speak over my man to his spirit. Also, and these are some things I just do quietly. I'm a prayer. I pray and intercede for my man. I really do. There might be things that he might share with me, and I just take in my prayer time, right? There's things that your man could be battling that you don't even know that he doesn't even say to you, but you can watch and study him and quietly pray for him. There may be things he's battling that he won't bring to you because there's things that men just won't tell us. But a discerning woman can read her man and read the spirit and his emotion and know something's up. He's not putting words to, but we get on our knees and pray. Women of faith, right? So I would say for me, that's a big deal. And sometimes that happens where I get these sort of unctions, and sometimes I'll text a friend in particular or someone and say, hey, how are you doing? I was thinking about you. You were on my heart. And I think men would love that. I was thinking about you, honey. You were on my heart. How's your day going? I just want to check in. You were on my heart in this moment. I want you to know you're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. I'm so thankful for you, right? You start speaking over him. And the other thing is I like to do is this is all under the umbrella of like studying him, anticipating his needs. So like he might say something in passing, and next thing you know, at least for me, I'll research it. I'm a researcher. I can find. Yeah, I need to find something. I can find it for you. So I'll research it, or and say, hey, this is something you mentioned a while ago, and I found it. I think that would really make a difference, right? So just being useful in that way, speaking to his spirit and his soul, quietly praying for him, or having, just remembering him and anticipating his needs, and study. Get your PhD in your man. How about that? That's what I would say.
All right, fantastic, Hermisha. Well, you all, we are going to take our final lap around as we close out. So much good content here. I cannot say thank you all enough for all of the engagement. So if we missed your question, the Wives Club is here for you every week. We had a little bit of a change up this week to accommodate travel schedules, but we are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So we shared a lot of things with you all. I did want to touch on a couple things. This is from Team Peterson, my first time seeing you here, but I believe you are a sir, so we will share. Here are some game, ladies. Men want these qualities in the women we want to wife up: respect, femininity, chastity, and cooperation. Every good relationship is built on respect, and then start there. And I saw some really good comments. You all know Luke Hazley. She's in the chat. We have collabed with her like AB. She says, be your future husband's executive assistant. We talked about studying him. We talked about anticipating his needs. She also says, watch your future husband as the dogs, get the dogs off me, as the dogs watch my every move, anticipate his needs before they know it's a need. So as we wrap, ladies, we just wanted to bring this message to you as far as being competitive. Yes, you can compete in a feminine way. Yes, we should compete because we are not entitled to our men. And not only do we compete to get our men, we have to compete to keep our men. Because that's one of the things that Kevin always said. You can get a man, you can get his attention, you can make his head turn, but can you keep him? And that's where the real work begins. So, also, lastly, don't compete with your man, but you can compete for your man. All right. So, AV, any final thoughts as we close out?
No, I think the mantra of this channel should be ask him what he wants and do it. That's all I have this week. AV out.
Oh my goodness. Somebody said AV likes her soundboard. She has a new toy and we love it too. So, thank you so much, AV. Lisa, any final thoughts as we close out?
No, fit, feminine, and friendly. That's what they want. Give them what they want.
Give them what they want. All right, Hermisha, any final thoughts as we close out tonight?
I would say, look, the race is not given to the swift or the strong, but only those who endure to the end, right? And keep running the race. It's a marathon and take it one day at a time.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to you all being in the chat. Please subscribe. We are growing. We are very close to 900. We may be over 900 subscribers on YouTube. Thanks to all of you all for helping our channel to grow so quickly. We are strong, but we are mighty. And a very, very big thank you to Mr. Jeff Liscombe. We know he's always watching from the clouds, but he joined our live stream tonight, the best friend of the late, great Kevin Samuels. Thank you so much for being a blessing and coming through here. All right, everyone, we will see you on the next episode of the Wives Club. Until then, we'll let you all have a good night. Bye.